This was my holy grail. I mean, it was beautiful. I was considered one of the best counterfeiters in the world.
Are you still?
Yeah, I'm still, yeah. When I was 15 years old, I met this older Italian gentleman named Vinci. He let me know that this is what we do. We print money. It's got the watermark, it's got the strip. I change the serial numbers every time. I know this money's fake as hell, right? That's when it got dangerous. My name is Arthur J. Williams, Jr. My first crime was actually breaking into the parking meters so I could buy my mom groceries. I remember coming home, I opened up the fridge, there wasn't nothing in there, and I got so mad and I ran out of the house. I started walking down Halsted Street, I'm hitting the meters, and I'm hearing the change. And I'm like, man, if I could figure a way to break into here, I could get some money. So I played with them for a little while, and I found a piece of metal that I could slide into there, and if you were lucky, you could get them to turn. So I got pretty good at it. I could pop a meter pretty fast. I'd crack them, take the quarters. Went to old Tony's supermarket, had a bag full of change, bought my mom a bunch of groceries. I remember the look on her face was a surprise. And she's like, oh my God, baby, where'd you get the money for the groceries? And she, well, I broke into the meters, got it myself. She said, baby, I don't want you stealing to buy us food. You know, God will take care of us. And I said, Ma, God did take care of us. He showed me how to get into the meters, you know? And that's kind of how it all began. I'm from the south side of Chicago, a little borough called Bridgeport. My dad left us when I was about 11. It was the worst day of my life, you know, as a child. Yeah. So we ended up becoming homeless. We lived in the Salvation Army. Eventually, they got us into the projects. And I remember walking in there, it was just a really dark place. The look on my mom's face of just hopelessness and to see the pain that she endured, I think that's where my anger got, you know? Like, how could he leave her? How could he leave us? And I hated him for a while. And I just remember being like, this is not where I wanted to be in life. I grew up in the projects, which was off 31st and Halsted. There was gangs, violence, drugs. When I first started going to school, and I got jumped on a few times, then I would see the project kids, they would walk together in a group, and they weren't getting jumped on. I was like, man, I better start walking with them. And then they became my friends after time. So that's kind of how the gang thing started. I don't really have too many good memories of growing up in the projects. The one thing that was nice is I had a brotherhood of friends.
You mind if we take your glasses off?
No, I think I'll keep my glasses on. My name is Thomas Brallo. Just about everybody I know calls me Tommy. Mutual friends of mine, they introduced me to Artie. So I was more of like a big brother to him. When he had problems, he would come to me.
He's extremely honest. He's not one of those guys that tells you what you want to hear. He tells you what you need to hear. As time went on, you know, we're doing crime, we're breaking into cars, we're breaking into garages. Kind of got used to living there in the projects. When I was 15 years old, I met this older Italian gentleman named Vinci. He was one of my mom's friends, kind of boyfriend, whatever. He always took a liking to me. He'd come into my mom's restaurant, drink coffee and everything. And then, you know, I ended up getting busted for stealing a car one time. My mom couldn't leave work, so you had to have an adult sign you out. So Da Vinci actually came up to the police station and signed me out. He started talking to me about, you know, I'm smarter than this. If I'm gonna be a criminal, then you gotta do it the right way. Not stealing cars, not robbing garages, not dealing drugs, all that shit, you know? He said he wanted to show me something. He had something that could help change my life. You know, and he took me into his world. I remember the first time that we went into his shop, because I had no fucking clue what he was bringing me into. It was an old building, warehouse building, kind of like this. Had an old shaft elevator, lifting up the gates. We walked in. It's got the lights blinking. I mean, it was just really trippy, you know? We went into the basement, brought me into his world of counterfeiting. We have the machine. He had his light tables, his presses. He showed me the paper, the different inks. He'd always have music playing, classical music. I remember smelling the ink. The smell was real strong. Even now, if I pop a can of ink, which I haven't in a while, just so everyone knows that, right? There's a smell to it that just will like get me really like pumped up, you know? I was really intrigued by it all, curious. He let me know that this is what we do. We print money. We had our paper, we had our cutting devices. I remember the first time that we were making the plates, you know, he allowed me to put the negative down, put the red tape over the numbers so we could block out the numbers. So you'd have to change the serial numbers every time. So you'd have to take the plate off, put another one on. For me, it was fascinating. It was like a science. You know, I didn't feel like I was breaking the law. I just felt like we were printing, man. We were printing paper. If I had to guess, he was printing money for the mob, made for the cartels. As far as like when it was finished, like, he never let me be a part of that part. And I didn't really give a shit. I just wanted to learn how to make money, man. I loved him telling me things. I loved this environment because it was still street, which I knew, but then I had this father figure at the same time, teaching me all these really interesting things. After about 9 months of it, he stopped coming into the restaurant. I'd go over by the shop. It was always locked up, and it was an old warehouse. You just couldn't break into it. And just never seen him again. You know, that was it. It was done, you know? So he vanished just like my father did.
One, two. I'm the illest, the realest, the best I ever was.
I was 17 when my son Arthur was born. Art 3.
Part 3 in the house.
I was scared to death because I had got kicked out of school because of a gang fight, so I didn't have any education. I was working for this construction company, not making much money.
They were young. My mom was 16, my dad was 17. I really don't have too much of a memory of my mom and dad splitting, but I know it was around sometime 3 years old.
I remember I didn't want to do to him what my dad did to me. I remember I wanted to be in his life, and I wanted to be around him, and I wanted to take care of him. But unfortunately, crime was my method of taking care of myself. I still was breaking the law, still doing things that weren't right, and thinking it was because I was taking care of little Art and his mom. But then I just got into some really heavy stuff. We started robbing drug dealers. We used to dress up like cops. One of my guys' dad was a cop, so he got all that stuff. We'd put the uniforms on. We'd know that this guy is coming with this weed. And so we'd get in these cars that would look like cop cars and roll up on them like the police. Everyone on the floor, handcuff them, take the drugs, take the money. And there were so many crooked cops back then. Drug dealers knew that cops grabbed the loot and the merch. The gangs is a strange thing, right? Because it's pretty much turf. This was the gang on this street, and this was the gang on this street. They hated each other, and violence kind of perpetuates itself, right? If they came and hurt one of our guys, we'd have to go back and hurt one of their guys. There was no peace. One day, we were at a little party, and me and one of my friends, we were leaving it, and we were walking through the projects. I felt something behind me, and I turned around, and it was two guys that were walking towards me, and they had handkerchiefs on. And I thought they were my friends from the party, like messing around with me. And I'm like, hey, guys, take them off, take them off. They were like, what do you mean, take them off? And they pulled out the pistols, and they pointed at me and just started blasting. I just felt like everything was in just slow motion and didn't know if you're gonna make it out of there. I turned around, I put my head between my legs and just started running. And I could just hear the bullets fizzing by me. I mean, basically in a war zone. I remember I got hit and I dropped to the ground. And as I hit the ground, I looked back, I could see them running up, still blasting. I went down to Texas to try to get away from the streets. Unfortunately, I ended up bringing Chicago with me.
2 years go by, I don't see him. I knew he was locked up at that point.
When someone pulls that pistol on you, that's it. Now you're in God's hands. I ended up running. There was blood coming down my leg. We actually got away after I came back to the neighborhood, went through a little bit of that aftershock of being shot. Loud sounds would like freak me out, and then became very cautious, just constantly monitoring my safety. It was just a really bad time. I just didn't know how to be a dad, and I surely didn't even know how to be a human at the time. I was just being an animal trying to survive.
My dad left around age of 3 or 4. My mom told me he was a criminal. He didn't want to be in my life. You know, growing up, I hated my dad because he wasn't there.
I loved that little dude. I didn't know how to juggle it, you know? I just felt like I had to escape. And that's when I was like, I'm out of here, and I went down to Texas. I ended up framing homes. It was hard work, but it was honest. That's when I met Natalie, little Texas sweetie. I really gave her my heart, really loved her, really wanted to spend my life with her. And then we ended up going on a wild journey together. I actually had went down to Texas to try to get away from the streets and to do something to change my life. Unfortunately, I ended up bringing Chicago with me. The same thinking, the same actions, and ended up getting into some more trouble. I started hanging out with guys that were more like me, had more of that criminal element. One of my friends said he had this jeweler that we could rob. It was a commercial burglary. We were gonna go in there when no one was there. We ended up getting into the place smooth, grabbing diamonds, watches, chains, everything. So we got away. I'm sitting in the front seat. I'm going through the bag. I'm looking at everything. I'm all happy. You got the adrenaline. You just pull it off. We get onto the expressway, and we pass the state trooper. All of a sudden, the state trooper whips up behind us. In Texas, there's a lot of smuggling going on. So I guess he thought we were a smuggler. Guys, he shot up behind us, pulled us over, searched the car, found all this jewelry. And then, so that was it, man. That's all she wrote. It was a wrap. By the time I went to prison in Texas, I was only like 20 years old, you know? I think I might have seen my son Art maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. I did exactly the same to Art III as my dad did to me, you know? He was running the country, breaking the law, and didn't really give a shit about where his kids were. And now here I was, you know, thinking that I was gonna be different. I tried anyway to keep to where I don't repeat the same thing that he did to us, you know? But.
Water?
Yeah, sure.
Artie kind of disappeared for a while. A year goes by, 2 years go by, I don't see him. I knew he was locked up at that point because he had disappeared for so long.
I ended up going to prison for about 2.5 years. You know, when I got out, I was ready to start my life with Natalie. And then I started telling her about some of my past, when I was with Vinci and how we were making money. It started to fascinate her. You guys really printed money? And I'm like, yeah, we printed money. It seemed kind of romantic to her a little bit, you know? And she's like, well, do you think you could do this? And I hadn't seen the new bills yet. And I was kind of in awe. I was like, wow, this is pretty wild. It had, you know, I'm holding it up. It's got the watermark. It's got the strip. Got the little 100 that turns colors. You know, I'm thinking, this is nothing like what Da Vinci was printing. Like, this is something real serious. And I knew that if I broke this, that it could be legendary. If I could figure this out, I could really set myself up for life. The first thing we had to do is we had to figure out the paper. When you hand a bill to a cashier, the cashier will grab the pen. When they mark it, there's actually some science going on right now. On currency paper, it reacts to where it marks yellow. On pretty much 99% of every other paper made, it'll mark brown. And so it's really hard to find the right paper that would match money. I had Natalie order paper from all over the world, pretty much. Gosh, man, we spent so much time on just ordering and testing and ordering and testing. And finally, it got to the point where it just wasn't working. Nothing was working. And me and Natalie were in the house. I'm saying, you know, we can't do this. I'm kind of getting on to her about it. And she grabs the telephone book and she's just shaking at me. You son of a bitch, we're not gonna find this shit. We gotta give it up. She throws it down and she marks the freaking telephone book. And what do you know? It marks yellow. I thought it was a mistake at first. When I seen her mark it and I seen the yellow, I'm like, I kind of got shocked for a second, right? Like, okay, wait a minute. We've ordered every fucking paper there is, right? And it's been sitting in front of us the whole time. And man, we started jumping up and down and screaming like we got it, you know? Natalie actually went to the company and said, hey, I'm a teacher, I'm doing some things with kids. Do you think I could get some paper? And they're like, oh yeah, take as much as you want, because they don't know that we're using it to make money, right? We ended up putting the two pieces together, and man, the thickness was really close to money. And so I told her, I said, you know what, we might be able to actually put the watermark and the strip in there too. So now we'll have broke the pen, we'll have broke the watermark, we'll have broke the strip. The only thing left really was the little hunter that changed colors. I was actually walking through a parking lot and I saw a car, it turned purple and green, the paint job on the car did. As I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, I wonder if we could get that same type of paint to put on there. And we ended up calling the company that made it, and we ended up finding out that they actually made the same stuff for the Treasury Department, right? Go figure, right? And me and her got to work. On all money, if you look at it, it has kind of like a cream greenish color to it. You can't print that with the regular printer, like a laser printer. You can only get it by pressing it, you know, like running it through the press. We would run it through the first time, put the color of money on it, then we would run it through again, we would put the border with the head, then we would run it through again and put the seal, and we had this program designed to where we changed every single serial number on our money. When we actually perfected the process, I mean, it was beautiful. So I said, baby, we're bringing the money to life, man, here we go. When she walked into the store the first time and she spent that $100 bill, there was that moment where I felt a little bit scared about it, you know? They pulled the pen out, they marked it. They know the money, they know this. It felt like all eyes were on me, and with the Secret Service, you never know where they are. When she walked into the store the first time and she spent that $100 bill, they pulled the pen out, they marked it, they held it up, and they put it right in the drawer. And she came out smiling, just all cheesing, man. She was cheesing, like, man, we did it. So this is the 9600. This is the one that I mastered. This was my holy grail. And gosh, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. Nah, just kidding. When people think about counterfeiting, it's not as simple as just you're printing money and now you have money. It gets a little bit dicey because you got to go out there and now you have to spend it to get the real money. You know, me and Natalie, I'd say for the next year and a half, we'd hit, travel really far into a different area. Hit, and then move. Look for like young kids working a cash register, because usually the young kids just didn't give a shit. You know, you're always looking to buy the cheapest thing to get the most change in return. There's a lot of freedom for two kids, 22, 23 years old. It was just cool. As time went on, we were making a lot of money. I think we made $30,000 one day. It just got to the point to where we just couldn't buy anything more. We would always buy like baby clothes, diapers, bottles. We would find like either like the Salvation drop-off box, and we would just load it up with all brand new stuff. We got off on helping people now. Eventually, we ended up back to Chicago.
When I was around 10, my father came back into my life. The first time seeing my dad after 7, 8 years, You know, he was picking me up, taking me to the park, playing baseball with me, you know, buying me stuff, just trying to be a good dad.
You know, being with little Art was just being able to spend time with him and get to know him, and for him to get to know me as a person and as a father.
You know, little did I know that he was counterfeiting money at the time.
And I kind of got reacquainted with some of my old friends and told them what I was doing, showed them some of the money. I just said, listen, guys, I figured it out. Here, look it.
When he got out of prison, I didn't know. And he just showed up at my house one day. I'm like, where you been? This is what I've been doing. So he came and with this new bill, and it was just dynamite. But he basically came to me at that time because they knew I had these connections at all these clubs, these high-end restaurants, high-end bars in Chicago. I was taking that money and pushing it through these nightclubs. I mean, it was a fabulous way to live, man. Not just here, you know. I was out there pushing money all over Las Vegas. I mean, it worked in the casinos. That's how good this money was. No one figured it out.
As we started getting bigger and bigger, I started selling money to the gangsters. It was so much easier selling 100,000 to this guy for 30 than going out and driving around and trying to spend it all day long. And once we started doing that, that's when it got dangerous. I'm dealing with some heavy people, right? Like I'm dealing with some people that, you know, could take you out like that. I started becoming really paranoid. I mean, I was like the James Bond of the criminal world. I had every fucking device that you could think of. It was insane what I was doing. I was spending a lot of money on anti-surveillance stuff. I used to make people drop their pants, see if they had anything on them. I'm running this device over them, looking for bugs. I was worried about everybody. You know, just anyone that could cause me harm or put me in prison. And so then one day I had to do a deal. We go to the House of Blues, and one of my Russian friends comes, and he's like, listen, why don't you come to our party? We're having a party, it's gonna be great. And the bartender overheard him talking about, you know, partying, like cocaine or whatever. And so I guess he assumed that we were partying upstairs in the room. And when we came back that evening to the hotel, somebody knocks on the door, police barge in, guns out, right in my face, and the cops start asking me, you know, where's the drugs? I'm like, man, there's no drugs. I had a little bit of marijuana on the table, right? So then they start tearing apart the room. They find the money. I'm freaked out because I know this money's fake as hell, right? Unbeknownst to me, one of the cops actually used to be a teller at a bank. As he's counting the money, he's like, you know what, man, this money's just not feeling right. There's something wrong here. So they arrest me, and I'm thinking I'm going to prison. I'm thinking this is it, I'm done. My attorney comes, and he starts reading me the police report. And the police report said the door was open and that they seen marijuana sitting on a table. And I tell my attorney, I said, well, that's impossible because it was a long hallway. There's no way that they seen marijuana on a table unless they're Superman, they got X-ray vision. When we went into court, my attorney asked that it be thrown out on illegal search and seizure, and the judge granted it. And I remember walking out and feeling like the whole world was watching me. If my paranoia wasn't already out the roof before I got arrested, now it was insane. They know the money, they know this. I felt like all eyes were on me, and with the Secret Service, you never know where they are. You know, they might be in here right now watching us, you know, who knows? But, I mean, it was just a very claustrophobic feeling that I had. And I knew at that moment that I had to find a way to escape it. Something inside me just wanted my dad. And I started really feeling that longing, like, where is he? So we started looking, and we got an address of an Arthur J. Williams in Alaska. So I wrote a letter, mailed it off. When he called back, I was completely shocked. Like, I hadn't seen my father. At that time, it was probably 22 years. And we talked for about an hour. And I told him, I said, I'd like to see you. And I remember landing in Alaska. I remember feeling really happy to see him, but then I remember feeling really, really mad, you know? Like, why did he leave us? Why did we have to go through all this, you know? And here he is in Alaska. We pretty much spent the next 3-4 days just talking and hanging out and laughing, and him telling me all kinds of stories. And, you know, I felt safe for the first time. You know, I found my dad. I was done counterfeiting. I felt that miracle feeling of being blessed and I'm free. And then, he said, listen, I got something to show you. And he takes me out into the woods and he walks up to this bush, he opens it up. It's an underground growing facility. Pops was growing marijuana, man. That's what he did. And then it opened me up to where I started telling him about what I did. So here, his kid is, doing something pretty cool, right? Making money. And not even a day later, he asked me if I was willing to print some money for him. I didn't even know what was going on, but my gut was telling me, get out of here, get out of here, get out of here.
Keep your circle of people that know about this small, and you can live a great life. And he kind of went overboard.
Here I am in Alaska, reconnecting with my dad, and he asked me if I was willing to print some money for him. I knew I shouldn't even do it again because I just got busted, but I didn't care. I just wanted to make my dad proud. I had some stuff stashed. We started shipping things to Alaska. I shipped the paper back, I shipped equipment back. Here we are, we were working together, printing money. And he ended up giving it to his wife, who ended up giving it to some people, and they just went on a crazy spending spree in Alaska. I didn't even know what was going on, but my gut was telling me, get out of here, get out of here, get out of here. I told my dad, I was like, I don't feel right about doing this with you. And I gotta go. And he was like, all right, that's cool. And me and Allie, we flew down to Houston. And then when we went to her mom's house, the Secret Service were waiting for me and they arrested me. Pop's wife told the feds the entire operation, told her everything that was going on while we were up there.
Told him one thing, keep your circle of people that know about this small, and you can live a great life. And he kind of went overboard. Too many people knowing.
They shipped me back to Alaska. They ended up giving me 36 months. My dad, he ended up getting 5 years. The next 2.5 years that I was in prison, I thought a lot about what had happened. And I was like, you know what, man, I'm just done with crime. Natalie was leaving me. She couldn't do it no more. And so I just felt like everything was done. It was over with. And then on the day that I got out, my father died in prison. I'll never forget that day. I woke up that morning, I'm packing all my stuff, going home. I remember getting out and getting in the car, and my sister handed me the phone, and they informed me that he had just died in prison. And it was tough. It was real tough. Now here I'm back in Chicago. I was only about 32 or 33. My son's 15. I started to get my life together. I started working, from cleaning toilet bowls to slinging liquor. So I was always doing these odd jobs, and I could never figure out how to pay my bills.
So yeah, in 2005, Rolling Stone did an article about my father. I read that he printed $10 million. I'm like, no way, man, you didn't print no damn $10 million, get out of here. He's like, yeah, so that, probably over the years. I didn't think that he was as big as he was. Couldn't believe it. And when I read that article, it pretty much gave me the whole recipe how to counterfeit. And from there, I just started photocopying money. I bought like a $100 inkjet printer, all in one. It was a whole process. Print the stuff, put it through the printer again. I would lay out all the bills on the floor and I would spray them with chemicals, and you would watch them curl up and they would pretty much they'd move. It was like a wave, And that was like the coolest thing. I wish there was Snapchat back then, I'd be putting it all over my Snapchat.
When I first realized that my son was following his father, he was staying with his mother, And she called me all frantic saying that he was printing money off her computer at the house. She's like, you gotta take him, I can't do it. And I remember a feeling of just real deep guilt and even shame that the Rolling Stone article, it was glamorizing my crime. And I never thought for one moment that the glamorization would lead to my son printing.
When I would make my bills, I got excited. You know, right away I'd be calling up my customers, hey, I got these bills, I got these bills. I would get an order for like 20,000 or 30,000. I would sell, you know, the bills at 20 to 30 cents on the dollar. I'm this 16-year-old kid. Some weeks I'd probably make like $5,000. You know, at that time I started getting into drugs, I was drinking, and you know, I thought the world of my dad. I thought he was the coolest person ever.
I took him and I tried to show him a different way, and he was happy to try to get his life together. And so then one day I came home and I seen him rapping, and he sounded really good.
So the first song I ever wrote, I was actually printing money. And the song was like, I'm sick of this counterfeit, gotta get legit, but I like my new outfit, the kicks, the chicks, the whips. And you know, I was pretty much talking about my dad in that song.
I had some friends in the music industry. I still knew a lot of people in the city. So I felt like his music could keep him from doing what I did. And so there was this real strong desire in my heart to give him that. We start getting him into the studio. He starts making music. And it's starting to cost more and more money. Before I went to prison, I had buried a shitload of cash, but it was fake money. I used to put it in these PVC pipes. I had about 100 grand. When I went to my guys to try to sell the money, they were like, listen, Art, we don't really use that money anymore. You know, if you want to make the euro, we're more than willing to start buying the euro off you, because that's what we're using over in Europe right now. And I didn't know shit about the euro. But once they mentioned it to me, bing, the light went off, you know? And so I started going on this journey of trying to defeat it now. I had this whole master scheme, the last big score, this was it. And we had a huge, huge operation ready to go. And one day I came home, and Art III is printing $20 bills off a freaking printer while I'm trying to pull one of the biggest deals ever.
My dad found out that I was counterfeiting and selling it to his buddies, and he put an end to it. At the time, I was taking a lot of Xanax. I think I was going through withdrawals or something. I blacked out that day.
I freaked out.
He came out the room, he's all hungover.
Like, what the fuck are you doing, man?
Getting crazy with me, I got crazy back with him.
For one, you don't need money because I've been taking care of him. You don't need to do this shit.
I went in my room, grabbed my wad of money that I had printed, and, you know, ran downstairs.
He runs out the house, I go out after him. Me and him are fighting on the street. I'm screaming and yelling at him, like, because he don't know what I'm doing. I'm doing some crazy shit right now.
I turned around and I seen him running at me, and I took the wad of money and I threw it. And at that moment, there was a Chicago police officer driving down Shields, and they seen, you know, money flying everywhere.
Cops pass by, they stop. Oh shit, this is really big, man. This is it, I'm done.
There's agents running down my gangway. Get on the ground, get on the ground. Put their knee on my neck. Money's coming out the printer this time.
And it broke my heart. I start trying to pick up all this money crap on the ground. I said, listen, officer, I got this. This is my son. I'll take care of it. It's just, you know, kid being a kid, man, I'm gonna handle this. The cop said, what's your name? I said, Art Williams. He gets on, he calls it in. Boom, that was over. Secret Service show up, they shut down the streets.
You know, they got out to see what was going on, picked up the money. It was money I made, they knew it was fake. They sat my dad down on the curb, and I'll never forget it, like he just started crying.
I was driving with my friend, driving down the street, and I just happened to look, and I go, hey man, that's Artie. I had been heard that multiple authorities were all over looking for him. And my buddy in the car goes, just go, just go. Yeah, that was tough. See him sitting there.
But when we get to the Secret Service office, one of them comes in and says, we know these 20s aren't yours, but this 100 looks really familiar. I sealed the deal.
And that's how my dad went to prison. I was a juvenile at the time. So I think I was 15, 16. So I didn't get charged with any of the money.
In the end, I got 105 months for that.
My mom came and got me from where the Secret Service had me. They were trying to get me to testify against my dad. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't testify against him.
I remember when I got transferred to my cell, and I felt like the biggest loser in the world. Here I am going down again. Couldn't make it right with my dad. Couldn't make it right with my son. For the first time in my life, I really didn't want to live anymore. I just didn't think I could get it right.
I went and stayed with my mom briefly. Didn't really get along with her. So I was back out on the street, and probably for the next 2.5, 3 years, I was counterfeiting. I think around that time, the new 50s came out, the new 20s, so I was photocopying those, and they were spending like crazy. Everybody wanted them.
After I got my 105 months, they shipped me to this holding facility in Wisconsin. I started painting. And I knew at that moment, this is your destiny. Like, this is what you're supposed to be doing.
At this point, I'm 17, 18, I got better equipment. I got a big, $2,500 printer, Apple computer, everything. I got a big order. I started printing, I think it was like, I don't know, $20,000 or something. Printing the money, let the stuff print overnight, woke up the next day, went and got breakfast, came back, let my dog out. There's agents running down my gangway. Get on the ground, get on the ground. My first reaction is to turn around and shut the door where all the equipment's at. And, they just tackled me, put their knee on my neck, cuffed me. Money's coming out the printer this time. So they got me red-handed. They shipped me off to Forest City, Arkansas.
And what do you know? Find out that my son been arrested for counterfeiting. And it broke my heart. Even though I felt like I had changed inside in my thinking, that level of guilt really hit me hard because now I knew my son was coming to prison. And then all of a sudden, like a month later, they tell me you're getting transferred. And when I found out where I was being sent, it was actually being sent to where he was at, which was Forest City, Arkansas. I remember sitting in Forest City when we finally got there and we're in the cell, and I'm just anxious to get out of there, just to go find him. And they brought me to the unit, and then I let them know, I'm like, listen, man, I need to find my son tomorrow, so I need you guys' help. And they said, your son's in this unit. And I was like, huh? He's like, yeah, he's in the TV room right now. He don't know you're here. And I remember walking to that TV room. My heart was beating. And I opened up the door and I see this little 18-year-old kid, man, sitting on the front bench. Just had such this little baby face, And he got up and he ran to me and he just held me, And for the next 2.5 years that we were together, I got to get to know him and he got to get to know me, and we would dream together. We became friends.
We basically made up for lost time. So we're bunking together. We definitely bonded.
And so our dream was, when we were in there, that I was gonna do painting and he was gonna do music. That was our vision. That's what we believed we were gonna do. We got out 5 years ago. Me and him got out around the same time. He started driving a truck. When I got out of prison, I actually had a studio in Chicago where I started working on my paintings.
We invited Art to have his artwork here at Lacuna and show his work, but also to help with curating the building.
That was like the first really good job that I had.
When I first met him, I didn't know that he was the counterfeiter yet. And then when I heard that he was the counterfeiter, and I was just, I was in denial that that man who I met was the professional counterfeiter. Like, how? No way.
When Joe gave me that opportunity, it allowed me to work with other artists and see how they worked. I mean, it was an amazing experience.
He was a sponge and wanted to learn everything that he could.
Unfortunately, as time went on and their projects started to wind down, I lost my job. and I started getting involved into some heavy shit. I was getting ready to go back into that world of making money, and I'll never forget it. Our third popped in on me one day, and I was trying to gather a bunch of shit to do what I wanted to do. And there was a little something that he seen that only he would understand.
I went over to his apartment one day, and I found some paper. And I instantly knew that it was the paper that we used to counterfeit. So I freaked out. When I found out my dad was counterfeiting money, I was so angry, I just wanted to punch him. So angry, I was just furious.
He said, "Dad, how fucking dare you, man? We were in prison, you were gone for 7 years. Why are you giving up, man? What are you doing?" And he ran out the house like he did when he was a kid. And I went out and chased him. He jumped in his car, I followed him, and he took me right back to the spot where it all began.
I stopped at 32nd and Shields, and that's where he got arrested. And he's like, "Hey man, I don't know what to do anymore. I mean, nothing's working out for me." And I'm in tears at this point. I'm crying because I don't want to lose my dad.
He jumps out of his car and he starts pointing at the curb and he says, "Do you remember that? Do you remember you sitting there and you went away? What are you doing? What are you doing to me?" And at that very second, I dropped everything. He saved my life that day. I made that decision that I was done. It was over with. And I just felt like God was trying to tell me something right there. And something clicked in my mind. I just said, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna give up on this dream. When I started painting again, the creative juices started flowing. And I created a bunch of work. I started selling my art. I was making good money. I was taking care of my family. Everything was good again. My art is a reflection of the days of counterfeiting. The really cool thing about my art is all the security features that were in the money that I broke, I put in my art, right? I put watermarks in my canvases. I use shifting inks for my paints. I found a way to use the exact techniques that I did to make my money to make my art. Now when you look at my art, each piece is telling you a story.
It really is just neat to see somebody that was doing it illegally. It makes sense, like, oh, you were a counterfeiter. You're making artwork that looks like money. It's sweet. And then to roll it out into creating a piece that you would put on your wall that says $100 on it, but he's selling them for like 40, 50,000. Like, holy smokes.
Now here is 3 years later. He's doing his music and I'm doing my art. We became successful, both of us. But it's been a journey, you know? Everything I went through, everything that I felt, the pains, the joys, the ups, the downs, all that led to me doing my art. And I reconnected with my son. It was like full circle, man. And now here we are, man. Here we are. We did it, son. You know, we did it.